All right, Camperonis, welcome back to our next episode of Magnum Opus. Today I have a very special guest joining us, the one, the only Kevin Stoffel. For those of you that don't know him, you will be absolutely amazed to meet him. He is an amazing TA. He's been with Opus for quite a while. So, Kevin, thanks again for joining us. It's really, really good to have you here, man.
You're so natural. You're so good at this, Drew. You make me sound too good. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I don't think you can sound too good. I'm pretty sure people that have met you, they're like, I remember Kevin. You're a memorable TA, man. So I have a couple questions for you. We'll just I'm going to focus a little bit on your life evolving into Opus, and then I want to focus a little bit on your time as a TA and as a camper. But really, I want to focus a lot on what you're doing now, too, because part of this podcast is we're exploring Opus TAs, where are they now stories. So we want to hear a lot about how you still keep music in your life, even though you didn't necessarily major in music. It's kind of been like a hobby for you, but we'll delve deep into that. So my first question for you is, can you tell me a little bit about your background as a musician? So maybe where you graduated, maybe some ensembles you played in, and even your primary instrument, if some people don't know that too.
Yeah, of course. Well, I play bass. I play the upright bass, the doghouse, as I've heard it called, which I love. I actually can't remember if I started in third or fourth grade. I somehow can't remember that, but it was in elementary school, either third or fourth. And I remember there was an event where all the students who were interested in playing an instrument could try out the string instruments. And I really wanted to try the bass, and I played the low E, the lowest note that it can play. Just bowing the E string, and I was like, oh boy, this is so great! I want to play this one. And that really was it. Like, it was just the low E string that sold me. I played in elementary school, middle school, high school, college. I'm now out of college, and I actually haven't gotten to play as in the way that I've wanted to. I got to play a little bit along with Opus this year, but I'm not in an ensemble right now. Let's see, like musical history. I was in just my public school orchestras my whole career. I don't know, my whole musical life. I was never in like a youth symphony orchestra or anything extracurricular.
Mm-hmm.
Which was fine. It was the amount of musical involvement that I wanted, and it was. I had a great time. I was lucky enough to be in like schools that our groups were. I thought they sounded pretty good when I was that age. So
always.
Yeah, it was lucky enough to not be a situation where I was constantly thinking, "Oh man, this group is no good. I don't want to play anymore." It was a good time. It was a great time to play in those school groups.
Nice, man. So I know you said you couldn't necessarily remember if you started in third or fourth grade. Could you give a rough estimate as to how many years you've been playing?
Okay, so I played. Well, I imagine it was probably fourth grade. So I'll say I played my fourth grade year, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So that's all of high school. Then I played freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of college. So that's 13 years of playing in school groups. And then, just because I haven't played in an ensemble in a year doesn't mean I'm not still a bassist and I can't still play bass. So I'll call that 14 years. I guess I've played bass for 14 years. You know what's it occurred to me not long ago that I have now been playing bass for longer in my life than I haven't. As a 23-year-old, I have been playing bass for 14 years, which means there were 9 years of my life that I didn't play bass. So my instrument is I'm sure a lot of us affiliated with Opus and stuff started fairly early. So I imagine a lot of us can say the same thing, but it's just something really cool to realize that your instrument has been a part of your life for longer than it hasn't.
I love when people realize that, because even though we're still fairly young, we like that statement makes me feel old. Like it's just an old thing to say that I've been playing an instrument for longer in my life than I haven't been,
Yeah.
which for like 9 years you could never say. So that's like a cool, but if you think too hard about it, slightly depressing fact. Oh man, no. So that kind of leads us into my next question for you. How long have you been involved in Opus? And if you can remember, how did you get involved? Sort of Kevin's origin story here.
Yeah, all right. How long have I been affiliated with Opus at all? Well, okay, I'll answer those questions out of order. How did I hear about Opus? I think it was just my mom was like Googling like music summer camps, and I guess she was interested in Opus and I was interested. I expressed interest and we went for it. That was I only got to be a camper for 2 years, which I wish I had known about Opus sooner. I wish I could have participated as a camper for much longer than 2 years. But so my first year as a camper, Linda would remember this. Linda's crazy with like specific dates and stuff about people. It's insane.
Yes.
I don't remember if it was the summer after my junior year of high school or the summer after my senior year. I don't remember. So there's two things that I failed to remember the year of. I want to. What's the oldest that Opus accepts through high school, right? So I think
I think like 18 through high school, senior year.
Okay, so I yeah, through senior year. So I feel like it would have had to be the summer. It would have had to have been the summer after my sophomore year and the summer after my junior year. And yes, yeah, that's probably what it would have been. So that's 1 year, 2 years as a camper, and then I was a high school graduate. Then I was a TA for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, like after each year of college, and then this past summer as well. So I unless I've miscounted, and it's very easy for anyone listening to this to rewind and check my math, but I think that's 7 years affiliated with Opus.
I would do the math too. I think 7 sounds right.
Okay.
That's awesome, man.
I think that's 7 years. 2 as a camper. I wish it could have been more. And Opus is a real cool place, so I didn't get to play as a camper as much as I wanted. So the best I can do is be a TA for others who want to.
Yeah, no, I got you. That's an awesome reason to be a TA.
What was the other part of this question? How I? Oh, okay, I honestly think it was just my mom Googling stuff.
Yeah, that's beautiful too. So that kind of leads us to our next question. So we've gotten all caught up how long Kevin's been playing and then how Kevin got involved in Opus. I want to hear more about what you're doing now because still you've explained it, I think 9 times, and it's like boggled my mind every time. So tell me a little bit about what you got your college degree in, and then if you can, tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing as your daytime job.
I would love to. So I didn't study music in college. I studied chemistry, specifically inorganic chemistry, meaning the chemistry around basically the entire periodic table, I guess you could say, all the elements, the metals, whereas organic chemistry really mainly only deals with elements like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen. But I want more variety than that. I'm not satisfied with just like 5 elements. So inorganic chemistry is what I enjoy. That's what I studied. And I was lucky enough to get an internship, which turned into a full-time job pretty much right out of college, as a chemist at a very small startup company. I mean, I think we have like 45 employees total at this company. It's pretty small, and it has that small group kind of feel to it. It's very fun to work at. So what do I do? Let's see. Well, the company I work at is called Newmat Technologies, short for like new materials. And we are a MOF company. We make MOFs. That's MOF. And it stands for Metal Organic Frameworks. It's the details aren't important. I'm sure everyone can Google it if they really want. But
Thank you for clarifying that. I was lost.
yeah, MOFs are essentially a very large class of materials that sort of act as sponges, but sponges on the molecular scale. So a sponge is, this solid object that has a definitive shape, but it has a bunch of holes in it. It has holes all over the place, and you can soak it with water. And because it has holes all over it on the inside, that means it has a lot of like surface area on the outside and on the inside. And that surface area is what allows it to hold on to water. Um, Now a moth is like a sponge, but the holes are like the sponge is the crystal structure of the material. So they're crystalline materials that have very regular and geometric and patterned holes in them. And like a sponge, because it has so many holes, it has a very high surface area for other substances to grab onto. Um, but unlike sponges, you can make moths out of tons and tons of different things, and you can modify them, and you can tune them, and you can select certain ones for certain applications. So moths, I would describe as molecular tunable sponges. They're great for a lot of things. They're great for absorbing gases in the same way that sponges absorb water. They're great for filtering certain things, filtering liquids, filtering gases. They're good. They act as catalysts. They can act as. I read a paper where moths are being used as shock absorbents. It's a very large class of materials that act as tunable molecular sponges. And
Right.
I've now been talking about this for way too long, but I work at this company, and I am a chemist at that company, so I get to depending on what project my boss has put me on and wants me working on, I might be synthesizing and creating new MOFs that our company has never made before, and testing them for certain applications, or trying to like if we discover a moth that we like and we want to be able to make more of it, I'll look at the scale up and I'll try and see if we can find a good procedure to make a lot of it. Or I'll see if I can make moths of larger crystal size. What I've been working on recently is not making moths. It's not really that chemistry related, but when you make a moth, it comes out of the reaction as kind of a powder, like flour, a really powdery substance. And
Okay.
so what's easier to work with in literally any environment, flour or rice? Rice is so much easier to work with. It doesn't dust, it doesn't poof, it pours easily. It's easy to move around. The formation of this moth dust into a more manageable form is a very important part of this company too. So what I've been working on recently is more the formation aspect of moths rather than the chemistry. And I do miss the chemistry. I miss doing reactions, and instead of getting to do chemistry in the lab, I've taken it home and I let it out in my cooking. So I've been really having a lot of fun cooking, I guess, because it's a way for me to practice chemistry without getting to do it at work.
Kevin.
Okay, so I just talked for a really long time about stuff. I studied chemistry in college. I got a job at a small startup company that makes molecular sponges, and sometimes I do chemistry, and sometimes I turn the flour into rice. That's what, that's what I
I
do.
think so. That's like the 10th time you've explained it to me now, and still I'm scratching my head after
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's I'm sorry. It's like I know very well how like esoteric and weird it is to someone who doesn't have a background in it. Don't worry about it.
No, but I think the point that we really want to touch up on, and the point that we always like to bring up during these interviews, is that you can do music and you can play music and you can have an interest or a hobby in music, but you don't have to major in it. It doesn't have to be your life. So
Yeah,
it's not something that you have to just dedicate every waking hour to really enjoy. Even
yeah,
if you just whatever time here or there, play at 3 concerts a year after you graduate, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people that I've interviewed before have been, such as Amanda Fenton, she makes her living off of performing and of teaching. And
Yeah, I'd rather die.
well, yeah, he's definitely honest with that. So it's just something that, I mean, music does not have to be the number one thing in your life to fully enjoy, and it can always be a hobby.
Well, let me clarify. I wouldn't rather die because I think it's a bad profession. I'd rather die than do that because I'm not good enough. Because I'm not good enough to earn a living at that. I very much respect musicians and everyone who dedicates their life to it. If I were good enough, I would not rather die than
Also,
playing music.
Not true. Kevin's a phenomenal bassist. That actually leads me to our last point here. So wrapping up, we are always looking for some of the best practice techniques, ways to get better, ways to just really hone in. You have 20 minutes to practice, and these are the steps that you do to make sure it's a good practice. So Kevin, let me ask you this. What is one tip that you have, one practice suggestion that you want to share with our campers listening out there?
I'm glad there's no webcam because you couldn't see how hard I was holding in laughter during that question. I was like saying to myself, "Oh my gosh, is he going to ask me for a practice tip?" Because boy, I am not the right person to ask about practice tips. That's why I'm not good enough to make a living playing music because I didn't have the dedication to really practice. Okay, let me think about this. Okay, I guess I will say the most effective way for me to get good at playing a piece is to have it memorized. When you're playing music, like for the first time, you get the music, and as you're rehearsing it in your orchestra, you're reading the piece off of the music, which is fine. But like what really takes it to the next level for me is after playing the piece and after rehearsing it enough times, you don't need to read the music from the like you don't have to read and play at the same time. You have it memorized. You just need to see the page in order to remind yourself. And that to me is really when my playing took off, because I was no longer my brain was no longer having to react to the notes and dynamics on the page. I knew the notes and I knew how to play them. I was just looking at the page for like as a prompt. It's like when you deliver a speech in class and your teacher says, or like a PowerPoint presentation, and the teacher says, don't write on your note cards complete sentences, because then you're just reading the note card the entire time. Write down bullet points and memorize like the content of your speech. So then all you have to do is look at the bullet point, remember what you have to say, and then you deliver it perfectly, and your brain can focus on articulation and bowing and expression and phrasing. I guess that's what I would say. I don't know if that's a good applicable tip for other people. I don't know if I want to tell people memorize your music, but if at least what I'll say is my playing and like involvement in the playing process always jumped up to the next level at the point where I had practiced it enough that I had it memorized and just needed to look at the page for a reminder.
Definitely. I think that's a really, really awesome takeaway. Just having even those last, maybe the intro bar or the outro bar memorized, so you can always watch the conductor even for those releases, make sure everything's spot on. Yeah, I think that was awesome. Well, Kevin, I really want to thank you again for taking the time out. I know, like as a chemist, you work nonstop and your hands get dirty, so taking the time to talk with me today is amazing. As always, we've taken a ton out of our interview today. But yeah, I just want to thank you again. And everybody join us next week. We're going to continue this interview process. I have another special podcast for us next week. And as always, enjoy the holidays. Those are coming up. Hopefully it snows, but I will see you guys next time. Stay tuned, everybody.